They're picketing right now, so I think it's the early stages. I would think it might take a little bit with this one.
When someone crosses the writer strike, that's some dirty shit. They cross the picket line.
Yeah, I haven't seen anybody doing that yet.
I think Ellen did. I had a buddy of mine who was writing on Ellen. Everybody kind of knows now what she's really all about. And that's another one of those. Like, I'm so nice and I'm so sweet. Being behind the scenes.
On camera, she laughed while she badgered her staff. And so all good things must end. And also the Ellen DeGeneres show. Yes, the 83-year-old entertainer just announced that the upcoming 19th season of her show will be its last. Apparently, she created a workplace more toxic than an Amazon warehouse in Chernobyl.
The Ellen situation.
Yeah.
You know, people found out that Ellen was mean, and all these people came out and said, Ellen's actually a bitch. And everybody, whoa.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. And she lost everything. She fell apart, disappeared, because people found out that this character that she was portraying in a half an hour on a television show is not really who she was. My buddy Greg, who was one of her writers, was like, she's a piece of shit. And he was like, she's a monster.
Ellen DeGeneres, the woman who once told an entire nation to be kind, and then proceeded to allegedly run her talk show like it was a high-stress boot camp for emotional collapse, just got tag-teamed by Joe Rogan and Greg Gutfeld. And let's just say, the takedown was so brutal, so hilariously savage, it makes her famous TikTok dances look like carefully choreographed crime scene reenactments. 1 minute, she's America's dancing sweetheart in sensible sneakers. The next, she's being called out harder than a Hollywood stunt, double battling a sudden case of stage fright. What dark secrets did Ellen allegedly sweep under that pristine, pastel-colored studio rug? Spoiler alert, it ain't just leftover Oscar confetti. This expose is messy, it's awkward, and it's absolutely hilarious. If you thought daytime TV was getting a little too boring, think again. This tea is piping hot and spilling everywhere.
It's like a beautiful name, Isis.
Ellen's rough. That's
Ellen is like an old.
But it's a rough one now.
It's a rough one now because she was running Abu Ghraib in the back of her show. That's a rough one. She's out there dancing with Kristen Bell, and in the back, there's people that are getting up on the rack like this.
It's so weird when you see, like, a lot of people saying that someone who seems so nice is not nice at all.
She does.
Countless allegations surfaced last summer that the show's work environment was rife with harassment and discrimination. Following those charges, Ellen's ratings dropped faster than Kevin Spacey's pants at a boy band pool party.
For years, Ellen DeGeneres was the undisputed queen of nice. She built an empire on relatable quirkiness, dancing her way into America's heart, giving away toasters like they were party favors, and making middle America feel like their local Target cashier might secretly be a benevolent daytime deity. Her catchphrase, "Be kind," became a cultural touchstone. But then, the whispers started. Whispers that became shouts. Whispers that suggested the "Be kind" mantra might have been more of a suggestion for other people. Countless allegations surfaced, painting a picture of the Ellen DeGeneres show's work environment as rife with harassment, intimidation, and discrimination. Stories so toxic, they made an Amazon warehouse in Chernobyl sound like a wellness retreat. As one commentator in the transcript graphically put it, it was like she was running Abu Ghraib in the back of her show.
Kicked out of show business. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, because I'm mean. Yeah. Yeah, you can't be mean and be in show business. No, they'll kick you out.
The carefully cultivated image began to crack. People started to wonder if the relentlessly upbeat dancing queen was perhaps, just perhaps, a meticulously crafted character. Staffers came forward, not for nothing, but with chilling consistency. One insider whose sister worked for Ellen alleged, "You were not allowed to make eye contact with Ellen in the halls of that show." Imagine that. Don't look her in the eyes. Don't speak to her unless she speaks to you first. And even then, pray you're not interrupting her soul-replenishing stare into her own reflection. Interns were allegedly treated like background furniture, which is deeply ironic, considering most of them probably possessed more genuine personality than the perpetually smiling, yet reportedly icy host.
Seem nice, but that's people have a very poor judge of character. She doesn't seem nice. It seems forced. People that are like that all the time, she doesn't seem nice. It's very forced. And whatever, you're allowed to be a bitch, right? You're allowed to be a bitch. You're allowed to be nasty to people. You're accomplished. You're a comedian. You did the whole thing. What you're not allowed to do is have a Guantanamo Bay situation in the backstage of your show where everybody's walking around afraid for their life.
And just when you thought the situation couldn't get any more bizarre, enter Joe Rogan and Greg Gutfeld, the unofficial tag team champions of daytime delusion takedowns. One has a podcast that's basically the internet's man cave, a sanctuary for free thought and occasionally professional bear wrestlers. The other is Fox News' resident smart aleck, a man who seemingly attempts to make being funny while wearing preppy loafers a national pastime. Together, they turned their finely tuned snark detectors towards Ellen DeGeneres, and the results were, well, let's just say the usual sparkle of that pastel set started to look more like the harsh, unforgiving fluorescence in a DMV waiting room.
DeGeneres bails for the UK. All right, I'm gonna go to you first, Kat, because this is I think you understand this story. So Ellen and her wife, Portia, have left their millionaire haven of Montecito for England. Now they're saying they'll never come back in the wake of Trump's win. Do you think that's the reason why she's leaving?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I mean, Ellen got canceled for real a few years ago from just being a jerk.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't like a single comment she said or something she did, just lots of people saying that working for her was a living nightmare and that she's a jerk. And I think that's probably why she wants to leave, because she hasn't really been able to make a comeback.
When Joe Rogan, the podcast king, known for grilling everyone from astrophysicists to conspiracy theorists, heard about the Ellen situation, you could practically hear his eyebrows raise in skeptical amusement across the entire nation. This is a man who has interviewed MMA fighters with more demonstrable compassion than what some former staffers claim happened in Ellen's green room. Rogan, in his usual no-nonsense style, likely looked at Ellen's be kind shtick, then at the mountain of allegations and thought, wait a minute, how does this relentlessly nice gal image square with all these widespread whispers about what really happens backstage? He's got a finely honed radar for when celebrity PR narratives don't quite add up, and Ellen's story was apparently pinging louder than a submarine in a microwave.
Why I was quitting, I would have not come back this year. I really did think about not coming back because it did, it was devastating. I am a kind person. I am a person who likes to make people happy.
No, the real reason, she says, is it was just too easy. Telling the Hollywood Reporter, quote, when you're a creative person, you constantly need to be challenged. And as great as this show is, and as fun as it is, it's just not a challenge anymore. Well, if that's true, here's an idea. When your viewership is down 43%, why not consider that the challenge?
Rogan's angle wasn't just some petty celebrity gossip mongering. No, this was full-on cultural archaeology. He dug into the dirt, the stories people whispered about in hushed Hollywood hallways. Stuff about a workplace that was allegedly less fun and loving, and more tense and toxic than a family reunion after the will is read. He painted a picture of a juxtaposition so sharp, it could make you wince. The be kind message, relentlessly blasted on TV, versus the alleged behind-the-scenes cold shoulder. The supposed Guantanamo Bay situation, where everybody's walking around afraid for their life. It was like watching your favorite childhood Hallmark movie suddenly take a hard, terrifying left turn into a horror film. Except you don't get to just turn it off and pretend it didn't happen, because it's being dissected on the world's biggest podcast.
When you become successful, you have to spend less time with people around you because you're servicing, take Ellen DeGeneres, she's servicing millions of people in her show. Therefore, she has to kind of like mitigate or control the amount of exposure with actual real people. Does that make sense?
It does in theory, but when you, but I'm still always hanging out on the street and I'm super famous. But all these reports, there were so many of them, of people being like, multiple people had the same story of her handlers, before an interview or anything with her, would come up and say, don't look her in the eye.
But Rogan's focus wasn't just on Ellen's alleged personal failings. He took it a step further, holding her up as a glaring example of a much bigger, more insidious cultural phenomenon. The kind of celebrity who expertly packages kindness like it's a marketable piece of merchandise, slaps a catchy slogan on it, and then expects us all to blindly buy into the fairy tale without ever questioning the ingredients. It's the brand kindness problem, where the public message and the private reality are often entire solar systems apart. And Joe, with his massive skeptical audience, wasn't shy about calling out this trend, because let's face it, when your entire brand is built on kindness, but the behind-the-scenes reality allegedly feels more like a psychological escape room designed by a passive-aggressive gremlin. It's no wonder some people get badly burned in the process and start asking some very uncomfortable questions.
But Ellen told the Today Show, home of Matt Lauer, that the bad press actually had nothing to do with her decision. Right, and the Titanic didn't hit an iceberg, it chose to sink.
Now, you might think that's enough public scrutiny to make any celebrity want to retreat to a remote island. But that's only half of this glorious takedown story. Enter Greg Gutfeld, who, upon hearing about Ellen's woes, was probably waiting for this exact moment like a golden retriever at a squirrel convention. Nothing, it seems, says Fox News Gigglefest, quite like dismantling a liberal icon who preached peace and love while allegedly firing people for taking necessary medical leave. That's not just kindness taking a holiday, that's HR horror playing out with a bobblehead haircut and a blindingly white smile. It's the kind of delicious contradiction that makes even Greg Gutfeld pause between his usually smug monologues and say, you know what? Maybe the be kind mantra should actively include not, say, throwing office staplers at people's heads when they forget the almond milk.
Emily, I watched her comedy special. It was like a huge pity party. It was about how she was lamenting how her reputation has suffered. She's essentially as popular as a pit bull with monkeypox. But she's putting this on Trump. Do you think that she's going to be, just everybody's going to love her in England?
Especially the jihadis who love the lesbians so much. They're gonna love her there.
Then there was the whole I'm friends with George W. Bush moment. A diplomatic brunch decision that sent a significant portion of her progressive fan base into full-blown emotional cardiac arrest. Watching Ellen DeGeneres chuckle amicably with the man responsible for launching 2 highly controversial wars was, for many, like watching a beloved vegan enthusiastically make out with a cheeseburger. Suddenly, the woman who represented progressive wholesomeness looked like she'd gotten hopelessly lost on the wrong golf course and accidentally decided to co-sign the Iraq War just for fun. Rogan didn't miss a beat, of course. This is a man who has grilled actual scientists on the intricacies of quantum mechanics while sitting barefoot. For him, Ellen's diplomatic dalliance with Bush was the comedic equivalent of a UFC fighter trying to ask the referee to pause the match so he could sign a peace treaty. And Gutfeld, he probably threw a small, sarcastic parade in his own head. A prominent Hollywood liberal getting caught enjoying the company of a Republican? It was like Christmas morning, but with significantly more passive aggression and way, way worse dancing.
They asked me, it was St. Patrick's Day, and Ellen asked me to dress as a leprechaun and come out on stage. And this is where, yeah, if you're wondering the low point of my career,
when you say she asked me, you're like, this is not a request.
It wasn't a request. I had to do it.
Yeah. You're doing this.
When you make an employee get in a leprechaun outfit and he's Irish, that's just cruel. That's racism.
Yeah.
I think that, why wouldn't that be? Think about other races. Would you have taken a Chinese employee on the Chinese New Year and put him in one of those big pagoda hats and made him dance to gong music?
Let's not forget Ellen's apology tour after the allegations about her toxic show environment went nuclear. Ellen did what any embattled multimillionaire celebrity icon with a crack PR team and a suddenly precarious reputation would do. She gave a carefully rehearsed, tearful non-apology in a room full of staffers who were probably calculating how many more months of silent, smiling suffering it would take to finally pay off their student loans. It was the kind of masterful performance that made even seasoned soap opera stars clutch their pearls and mutter, "Wow, that was impressively forced." Meanwhile, Gutfeld was likely doing cartwheels of ironic joy in his studio. A daytime darling melting down in a public scandal? That's his dream headline. And Rogan? He was likely sitting back in his sensory deprivation tank, calmly whispering to himself, "This is precisely why I only trust chimpanzees and stand-up comedians." Because really, nothing screams trustworthiness quite like someone who thinks kindness is primarily a brand strategy instead of, an actual demonstrable personality trait.
Ellen DeGeneres has seemingly vanished from public life after years of dominating daytime television, leaving many wondering what really went on behind the scenes. Recently, Joe Rogan mentioned Greg Fitzsimmons, who was one of her former writers during a podcast, but what many people missed was Greg already opening up about his experiences working on the show in a previous interview, and let's just say it's not all rainbows and sunshine.
The beauty of this tag team takedown is that neither Rogan nor Gutfeld needed a dramatic face-to-face showdown with Ellen herself to land these devastating blows. There was no petty Twitter back and forth, no desperate attempts at on-air damage control from Ellen that they could directly pounce on. They simply offered sharp observations, devastating deep dives, and a willingness to call out what they and many others saw. That's how you truly expose someone these days. Not with manufactured drama, but with undeniable facts and fearless, incisive commentary. Ellen's Be Kind crown might now have a few very noticeable dents, and her once pristine daytime kingdom just got a little less fairy tale and a lot more uncomfortably real. Fans, and perhaps even other celebrities, might start looking at those signature dance moves and sweet audience member smiles with a healthy dose of new skepticism. And maybe, just maybe, other celebrities will start sweating profusely under the harsh glare of the public microscope, knowing that kindness as a brand isn't an automatic get-out-of-criticism-free card anymore.